Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here every week to bring you all of the latest updates in the world of Google Workspace. This podcast is available from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Strawberry7.
Coming up on the show today,
we have 9 updates for you today. We've got updates to Google Slides, Drive, Classroom, another one to Classroom, Calendar, Vault, Workspace, Meet, and finally another one to Meet. As always, there is a link to the document that we read from in the description of either the video or the podcast. This contains some more detailed information, some very nice pictures, relevant links, and even some moving graphics showing you all of these features in action. So, let's get to it.
on with the show. Right, so this week we have 4 little updatelets for everybody this week, and the very first one is to do with Google Slides. So you can now get more granular views in Google Slides with some new zoom settings. You can now customize your views in Google Slides with new custom zoom settings that give you the ability to input your desired zoom percentage or use the preset zoom percentages in the drop-down menu at the top of your presentation. And to be honest, I thought this was another one of those updates. I kind of thought this feature was already available, but if not, it is now.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing as you were reading that, Adam. I thought, can't you do that already? Maybe it was custom percentages that you couldn't do before, because I do seem to recall something about that in Google where I think I've tried to do that before. I've tried to go to a percentage that isn't on the drop down and not been able to, or something like that. So maybe it's the custom percentages that are new.
Yeah, and I generally use Google Docs or Google Sheets, so I'm not actually using Slides all that frequently. And so, yeah, as I say, I couldn't really say for certainty whether this update was not available, but as I say, it definitely is available right now.
It is now. Excellent. And there's a nice link in here for people to learn more about zooming, isn't there, Adam? So if you're confused about where that is in Google Slides, but there's a nice moving graphic that shows it in action as well, but it's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, we do like a pretty picture.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next?
Next up, we have an updatelet to Google Drive. So, expanding Google Drive log events to additional Google Workspace editions. So, Drive log events, which is a feature that enables admins to access an audit and investigation page to run searches related to Drive log events, is now available for Google Workspace Business Starter and Essentials Starter editions. So, previously, I'm not actually too sure specifically which tiers they were available to, but not those ones, and that is now available.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We've talked about this in one of the previous updates, haven't we, where we would have liked to have seen those security and kind of logging features for the admins available to a few more editions. So very nice to see that that's been expanded to additional sort of editions there and going down to Business Starter. There's quite a nice link that you've put in here as well, Adam, which is really nice, which is to learn more about Drive log events. They are very, very handy for anybody who hasn't used them, so I'd encourage you to go and check those out if you haven't used Drive log events before and you want to know how they work.
And I was just going to say, anything that expands and updates to more editions of Google Workspace can only be a good thing, really. So it's just good to see that spread out a bit more. Share the love.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Adam. What's our next update, please?
So, up next, we have an updatelet to Google Classroom. So, expanding originality reports in Google Classroom to Microsoft Word files. So, educators can now run Google Classroom originality reports on Microsoft Word files to check their students' work for authenticity. This tool will identify uncited content and plagiarism by comparing a file against web pages and books on the internet.
That's really nice. I mean, the originality reports, I haven't used them personally, but I do understand they're very, very useful for certain teachers. And seeing that expanded to Microsoft Word files is really, really useful. Because not everybody, as we know, especially within the education environment, they're still on Microsoft a lot. and not necessarily using Google Docs that much, even in classrooms. So it's really nice to see that expanded to Microsoft Word files as well. I'm kind of interested to know how, I guess you kind of need to put the file into an originality report checker or something like that. I think that's probably how it works, so I'm guessing.
So something that I was a little bit curious about, because I was actually just speaking with some people at work about this just recently, actually, and I just kind of wonder, I don't want to go too much off track. So I think this originality report checker is a great thing, but something I was wondering about, just because it was a bit topical at the time, can these originality report checkers check things such as AI created documents? Because things like ChatGPT are very popular at the moment, and you could very easily tell it, just write me a report all about something, and then it will literally just present a report to you. So almost like, can AI recognize AI, or could so if it generated a report to you, could you say, oh, now just rephrase it slightly so then it does look a little bit more original? Would something like this still be able to flag it as something that is not original from the I say the author, from the person actually using the computer?
Yeah, I'd say probably not. It's probably looking for documents that have been created already and available, rather than something that's been generated by an AI. But what I would say as a teacher, I think would be able to spot it a mile off. I mean, everybody's sort of praising these AIs and ChatGPTs and things like that for and their variants for what they can create. It's pretty good. It's pretty cool, but it's a bit of a way from being, fooling a human yet. I mean,
Definitely.
Yeah. When it's short, it's very, very good. You ask it to write a haiku on Star Trek Voyager or something, and it does a pretty good job. But when you're asking it to write a long article, it's interesting. You can always kind of tell that it's an AI generated thing, because it's sort of
will probably use the kind of language that you wouldn't just naturally use in a sentence.
Yeah.
Almost as if you've used a thesaurus on every single word or something like that.
Yeah, it sort of spins it into this big yarn, and it's a bit strange in the way that it's worded, which is just not the way that a human would word it. So I'm guessing a teacher would be able to pick that out. Again, you've put a really nice link in here. Thank you, Adam, for how to turn on originality reports. And I think there's probably a little bit more detail about originality reports in that link, maybe?
Hopefully.
Yes. Okay. We'll go with yes. Good. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next, please?
So up next, we have another update alert, and once again, this is for Google Classroom. So adding rich text formatting to comments is now available in Google Classroom. So rich text formatting is now available for class and private comments in Google Classroom, enabling teachers and students to customize and add emphasis to their content. This highly requested feature includes bolding, underlining, italicizing.
It's okay, Adam. Don't hurt yourself.
I could say that earlier. I'm very sad. I practiced that earlier. I could say it. I do know what italicizing and bulleted lists.
Lovely. Yeah, bulleted lists easier to say. Italicizing, yeah, something like that. The moving graphic here for everybody listening is perfect for showing this feature. Really, really like this feature. Really nice. It's going to be so useful for educators, because I think the example that they've given here is really nice as well, when they're saying your first draft looks really great, and then they've bolded really great, which is nice. Reading guide for Catcher in the Rye, they've put Catcher in the Rye in italics, and then they've put a bulleted list in as well. So yeah, I really like this feature. I think that's going to be really, really nice for teachers to use that and take advantage of some of those basic tools. And we'll probably see an expansion to those tools in one of the future updates, I would have thought.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. There's not a huge amount to go into this, really. Yeah, they're adding in new formatting options for your text within Google Classroom, and that's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next?
So up next, so that's all of the update lets out the way. Up next, we have an update to Google Calendar. So available now in beta through Google's Developer Preview program, you can write a user's working location using the Calendar API. So I said this update was for Calendar. it's kind of it's more for the developers out there, but it's affecting calendar. So using the API to write a calendar's working location values, you can help you synchronize users' working location with third-party tools. You can easily update users' working location based on when they book a hot desk via a hot desk booking tool or schedule a trip via a travel booking tool. Reading of working locations is already available through the developer preview program.
Excellent. That's fantastic. I really, really like this update. Again, Google are so at the forefront of this sort of hybrid working environment and in getting user locations depending on where they are in their calendar and reflected in that way. And I think this is great expansion of that to tie in with those other tools so that people aren't constantly having to remember to update their locations, change it from here to there. And instead, it's just tying through other things. Really, really like this. What's the getting started on this, Adam? How do people turn this on or get started?
Okay, so for the admins or developers, developers can apply to the Google Workspace Developer Preview Program to use this feature. I've added a link in our documents for anybody that would like to have a look at that. And for more information, you can also see Google's developer documentation for writing users' working location. Again, link in the document. While all developers will be able to use the API, the working location feature is only available for eligible workspace additions, and I'll come on to that in just a moment. For the admins to get started with this, you can always visit Google's Help Center to learn more about configuring the working location feature for your organization, and as always, link is in the document.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for adding all of those links. That's really good to know. And I think we're going to get onto the availability. You were saying there about it's got to be certain eligible versions of Google Workspace. So we're going to get onto the availability in a sec. What's the rollout phase on this first, though?
So this feature is available right now.
Okay, brilliant. So it's already available, which is really nice to hear. And what's the availability here on those versions that it mentioned?
Okay, so all developers can use the API, however, the working location feature is only available for select workspace editions, and they are Google Workspace Business Standard, Business Plus, Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Plus, Education Fundamentals, Education Plus, Education Standard, the Teaching and Learning Upgrade, and non-profit customers.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's fantastic. So it's available to quite a lot of people, and that is good to see.
And it's available right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little bit high end in the business, but that makes a lot of sense. I think it will only be those higher end customers who are using these types of applications anyway. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have an update to Google Vault. So, enhancing Google Vault's file retention capabilities using Google Drive labels. Google Drive labels are metadata for your organization, defined to help organize, find, and apply policies to files in Drive. As an administrator, you can create labels to apply to files stored in Drive. Starting right now, Google Vault now supports customer retention rules based on Drive labels. With this update, Vault users can set fine-grained file-level rotation policies with configurable label conditions. Additionally, you can have a label with multiple options and have nested and conditional application of overlapping and distinct rules. So it sounds like there's a bit of flexibility that you can use with this. Record retention management is a critical activity for organizations looking to maintain various compliance requirements. With file-level policy administration, label-based retention enables organizations to now be much more targeted in their retention management.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. This will definitely help any UK listeners with their GDPR retention policies and keeping those compliance in place. And we've talked about these labels before in a previous update. So really, really nice to see that these labels are now being used for this type of thing to help people with the compliance. How do people get started with this? I can see a lot of links for people to read up on.
We do like a link. So to get started for the admins, you can visit Google's Help Center to learn more about getting started as a Drive labels admin, applying classification labels to new files automatically, and also setting up Drive retention rules and use labels. So links to all of that is within the document. For the end users, though, it's really easy because there's no end user settings for this feature. It's just for the admins.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And what's the rollout phase here in availability, please?
Rapid release and scheduled release, there is an extended rollout, so potentially longer than 15 days for feature visibility, which started on June the 20th. And this update will be available to Google Workspace Business Plus, Enterprise Essentials, Enterprise Essentials Plus, Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Plus, Education Standard, and Education Plus customers. Sorry, that threw me up seeing Enterprise Essentials Plus. Have we seen that before? Is that a new tier?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with that tier.
Is that a typo?
Yeah, I must say I'm not familiar with that tier. I'll look it up afterwards, but I haven't heard that one before.
Maybe this is the first update in the last 6 months that has been relevant to that tier. And
it could well be. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have another update, but this one is a bit more broad and relevant to Google Workspace on the whole. So you can now respond to access requests for Google Workspace files more efficiently. Google is introducing a new file access experience to make it easier for file approvers to respond to pending access requests across Google Workspace. Currently, when users request access to a file, the approvers receive an email with the option to share the file or decline the request. With this new update, users can review and respond to requests from within the file. Approvers will see a notification dot on the share button, and if they have pending access request, a new banner at the top of the sharing dialog. Approvers can continue to respond to access requests through the existing emails that are sent when users request access to a file. If the Notify checkbox is selected when an approver responds to the request, the user who requested access will receive an email with the status of the request.
Yeah, very nice, simple update, but really going to help people, I think, with handling those access requests, because you don't always see them on your email, and sometimes they might get a bit lost, so having that in the file is really handy and makes a lot of sense. Again, there's a really nice moving graphic in the document which shows exactly how this feature works, and shows it very, very clearly. So thank you very much, Adam. What's the getting started on this, please?
Okay, sorry, I just want to quickly add, before I go into the getting started, something that I queried, well, as I say I queried, I literally thought to myself, about this update. I'm sure Google has put lots of thought into this, but something that I did think about, so every now and then, within Google Classroom, as a classic example, when a teacher posts some work, sometimes they forget to press the button to say, make a copy for everybody, but the file that they've added into their Google Classroom, the students within their classroom don't have access to that file. So then the teacher may receive lots of access requests because all the students want to access the file. So I was wondering, would the teacher have to respond to every single request individually, or would all those access requests just stay on the file indefinitely? Would they say automatically go after a set period of time, or what? I was just a bit curious what the process in that kind of situation would be.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say they would basically stay indefinitely, and yeah, I think you'd have to respond to each one individually because they are individual requests. So I would have thought that you'd have to respond to each one individually. But I haven't seen it, so yeah, it's just a sort of educated guess as to how that may work. Yeah, thank you for bringing that point up, though, Adam. It's a good point about when you've got multiple sort of requests there. I think it would still be easier to see it in the file, though, even when you've got multiple requests. But especially if you've got the notification emails off as well, which a lot of teachers do sort of have, so they're not bombarded. Thank you, Adam. What's getting started on this, please?
Okay, so for the admins, there's no admin control for this feature, but for their end users, so within a file, you can open the file and click the share button, click on the new banner to review access requests, respond to the request. You can also visit Google's Help Center to learn more about sharing files from Google Drive, and I've added a link in our document to that.
Great, thank you. And what's the rollout pace here in availability?
So, rapid release and scheduled release, there is a gradual rollout, so up to 15 days for feature visibility, which started on June the 20th. And this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers and also users with a personal Google account.
Great, that makes sense that it's right across the board there with all of the different versions, so that's really, really nice to see. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
Up next, we have a Google Meet update. I think this kind of stems on a little bit from what we were talking about with the Google Meet hardware update that we had from last week's episode. So, you can now monitor additional Google Meet hardware issues within the admin console. So, you can now use the admin console to detect and monitor additional Meet hardware issues, including missing display, missing controller, missing default camera, missing default microphone, missing default speaker, missing default whiteboard camera. In addition to these new issues appearing in the peripheral status of the device list page and on the issue timeline, email and SMS alerts will be supported for them as well. Also included in this update, admins can now clear previously set default peripherals from the peripheral tree on the device detail page. Previously, this was only possible by setting a different peripheral as the new default. Before this update, the Google Meet hardware section of the admin console provided insight into issues related to devices going offline or missing cameras, microphones, and speakers. With this update, admins can now also get information on other crucial peripheral devices that admins need to know to monitor the health of their rooms.
That's really nice, and I think you're absolutely right. We saw this update previously where it introduced this admin troubleshooting health sort of feature around Google Meet hardware devices, and I think you're absolutely right that this has kind of expanded on that and added in some new elements to that. So very, very nice to see. Always like to see things that help admins out and help admins diagnose problems for users. So yeah, that's really, really good. How do people get started with this? I can see there's a very long note at the bottom. So yeah, how do people get started with this?
Okay, so for the admins to get started with this, to view these new issues, you can monitor the status of your peripherals in the Google Meet hardware admin console. I've added a link in our documents to help you with that. If you have turned on alerts for any OU using the peripheral alert setting, you will automatically start receiving alerts for these new issue types, so that could be very helpful. Note that for most displays, the CEC support, a missing display issue should only be opened when the display is actually disconnected from the device and not just put into standby mode. However, actual behavior could vary from display to display depending on how manufacturers implement CEC. Google suggests testing your displays to ensure they work as expected. Missing controller issues will be opened only when a device has no eligible controllers connected to it, such as including touch controllers or remote controls.
So that's good to hear. Thank you, Adam. And just for people who are using those devices and seeing those alerts come through, if you are seeing them come through too frequently, it's good that Google's put that note in that there might be some reasons for that depending on how CEC is implemented. Thank you, Adam. What's the rollout phase here? I think it looks like there's some kind of different levels on the rollout phase, right?
So, rapid release and scheduled release, there is a gradual rollout, so up to 21 days for feature visibility for this one, began on June the 21st for all listed features except display issues. Display issue support will be rolled out along the promotion of Chrome M108 to the stable release track. This is expected in the next 6 to 8 weeks, but you can also check out what's new in Google Meet hardware for the latest and more accurate timeline. So there is a link to what's new in Google Meet hardware within our document. Note that during rollout for your organisation, there may be a short period of time when issue data may appear inaccurate or delayed. This should resolve itself on its own when feature rollout is complete. Alert notification support may not be available for up to a week after you first see the new issues appear in your organisation's admin console. This is expected and due to the serialised nature of the feature rollout procedure. So it looks like there's a bit more going on behind the scenes with the rollout of this update.
Yeah, quite a lot there. And am I right in saying here that this is available for all Google Meet hardware customers, which would make a lot of sense?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. I think this is our last update, and it's another Google Meet one, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so lastly from us this week, we have another Google Meet update. So you can now use companion mode to check in to a Google Meet conference room so everyone can know you by name. One of the challenges of joining a virtual meeting from a conference room is that people in the room are identified by the name of the conference room rather than as individuals. But that's changing today with the new companion mode check-in feature within Google Meet. If you're joining a meeting from a conference room, you can use companion mode on your personal device to check into that specific room. Room check-ins allow everyone on the call to easily identify who is in the conference room rather than simply seeing the conference room by name. And in the document, I've added some lovely graphics so everyone can see what this looks like. So essentially, say if there's a group of you sat around a table, instead of just having the name of the conference room or whatever room you're in, you can also add your individual names in there as well. Room check-ins will be available by default, but admins can turn this feature off for specific Meet hardware device or specific users. Rather than being represented in a meeting just by the conference room name that you're in, room check-in helps ensure everyone in the meeting can see your name and be aware of your presence. If you turn on your personal video tile in companion mode, it, along with the conference room name, will be shown while you're presenting. Combined, this helps boost individual representation, making meetings more equitable, inclusive, and collaborative. Admins can turn off room check-in for specific Meet hardware devices within an organizational unit within the admin console. And to do that, you'd go to admin console, devices, Google Meet hardware, select your OU, device settings, room check-in, then uncheck users can check into this device meeting room. This can be particularly helpful in instances where the check-in feature should not be used on dedicated executive devices or in a large meeting room, which I think makes perfect sense. If there's 20 or 30 of you sat around a table, if you list off every single person, that's gonna take up a bit of real retail space on your screen. So maybe if there's only like 3 or 4 of you, or a small handful of people, then it would be a bit more appropriate, or just a bit more user friendly for everyone if you're doing that. Admins can also turn this feature off for specific users within an organizational unit. Admins can use this option to slowly roll out room check-in by department, for example. To turn room check-in off for specific users, navigate to Apps, Google Workspace, Google Meet, select your OU, Meet Video Settings, Room Check-in, and then uncheck all users can check in to eligible rooms in the admin, and all of that is within the admin console. And this feature is only available for Google Meet hardware devices, and interop devices are not supported at this time.
Okay, I mean, it's a really nice feature. I think for organisations that are on a larger scale like that and using those Google Meet hardware devices, I think this is lovely. It's going to make it much more relevant to have people in the room and also speed up the meeting a little bit, I think, as well, because you'll be able to address people by name rather than just seeing the conference room. What would be really nice with this feature as well, I don't know quite how Google would do this, but if it was somehow able to highlight the name according to the person, maybe when they're speaking.
So when they're speaking, so it's really clear that this is the person that's actually speaking. That could be that's a nice idea, actually.
Yeah, they could do it with some sort of AI of facial recognition or something like that. So when you're typing your name in, the camera's looking at you and the Google Meet hardware is going, oh, this person that's typing their name in right now is Elizabeth. I know that that's Elizabeth, and then kind of do the association that way or something like that. So I'm kind of glossing over probably about 6 months of programming here by just saying I'll just do that. But that's, I'm guessing, how they would do that, if they even did that. But in the meantime, the feature is really, really nice. That's really, really good. And thank you for that sort of detailed explanation as to how to get started with that and how to work on that. As Adam said, all of that is in the description that we've got in the document in the podcast and the video description areas. What's the getting started with this, Adam? I think there's a bit for admins and end users, right?
Yeah, so I've already kind of alluded to whereabouts in the admin console you'd go to do a few different things with this. However, for the admins, this feature will be on by default and can be disabled at the organisational unit level for specific hardware devices or by users. You can also visit Google's Help Centre to learn more about managing Meet settings. Link is in our document for that. For their end users, if this has been enabled by your admin, Room check-in will be available for all users joining companion mode from meet.google.com or by using g.co/companion. Check in by selecting the Google Meet hardware device on the call. You can also visit Google's Help Centre to learn more about using companion mode for hybrid learning and collaboration, as well as a video guide. And I've added links to both of those within our document.
Great, thank you very much, Adam. What's the rollout pace and availability on this one, please?
So, rapid release, there is an extended rollout, so potentially longer than 15 days, which started on June the 22nd. Scheduled release, there is a gradual rollout, which will be happening on July 24th. So there's about a month or so difference between those. And this update will be available to all Google Workspace customers with Meet hardware devices.
Yeah, so it's another Meet hardware update, so that makes sense that it's available on that tier. Lovely. That's an interesting sort of gap there as well, like you say, about a month in between those. But not often that we see that, but sometimes comes up. Thank you very much for all of that information, Adam. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about all of the latest happenings and updates in the world of Google Workspace. Remember that this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. Thank you very much for joining us this week.
We'll be back again next week with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye.